What is going on? Welcome back to Founder Fire. My name is Iggy Odighizuwa, and I'm the founder of CharlieAI.io, a revenue and AI-powered revenue automation platform to help you turn more of your clicks into dollars in your bank. Now, in this video, I'm going to be diving into our 8-figure optimization framework. Now, the reason why I say 8 figures is because this framework has allowed us to produce over 70 million in as far as like cash collected across all of for our internal brands and some of our portfolio companies since 2020. All right, so from 2020 to date, over 70 million in cash collected across several different brands. So this is the framework that we follow and that I follow every single time, without failure. When I want to get a business to over 8 figures, this is the framework that I follow every single time. And I'm going to be diving into it with you guys here and just kind of documenting it so you can see it for yourself. All right. So there's a couple different things that we do. So there's different phases for our optimization formula. So there is phase 1, which is where we're just doing R&D and just gathering data. This is like ground zero. This is really phase 0. So phase 0 is gathering data. Phase 1 is audience verification. Phase 2 is message optimization. Phase 3 is conversion optimization. And then when we get to phase 4, that's when we start scaling the brand. All right, so we have ground 0, which is R&D. Phase 1, audience verification. Phase 2 is message optimization. Phase 3 is conversion optimization, and phase 4 is scale, right? So now as we're going through these phases with a brand, there's lots of different things that needs to happen within it for us to go from ground 0 to phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 to phase 4. And there's an underlining philosophy, there's an underlying mental model that we follow to allow us to make good decisions. And this is what we call our CADE framework, like our CADE model. So CADE is an acronym. C is compile data. A is analyze data. D is data-driven strategy. E is execute. And when we execute, we follow the more, better, repeat, new engine. And so when we decide on what is the strategy, and we go to E and we execute, we do as much as we can. We max out volume as fast as we can, right? And then we analyze that and we look for ways to do it better. How do we improve? And then we repeat and we max out volume at the new standard of better. And then we analyze to see how can we do it better, and we find ways to improve, and then we max out volume at the new standard of better. But that gets you only to a certain point where you reach a critical mass of where this juice is not worth the squeeze, right? The incremental increase that you get from just trying to figure out how to do this thing so much better, like the lift just isn't there. And that's when, and only when we've maxed out more and better, do we look to new. So that's why it's more, better, repeat, new, right? We only consider something new when we fully max out the more and better cycle. When we're starting with a completely new business, it's R&D, right? I'm figuring out what are people willing to pay for? And we start with like a thesis. I put together a document that goes over exactly what we're going to offer. And let me see if I can find one from one of our other offers that we were able to scale. So when we have I put together a document, and I just call it like what we offer. And it's just, what are the assets that we have available to us that we think people are going to be willing to pay for, right? What are the outcomes that we can essentially offer someone that's going to allow us to charge a premium for us to be able to deliver the results and something like that. So here is one for one of our blue chip. Actually, let me just pull this up. So for blue chip, what we offer is a done-for-you acquisition system, right? There's 4 pillars to this system. So the first pillar is a done-for-you acquisition system, like end-to-end acquisition, ads, emails, scripting, post-booking nurture system, no-show follow-up, like everything in between, like full stop, the entire shebang, top to bottom, the conversion API tracking, the conversation funnel, the exact word-for-word script, the booking application funnel, the 7-step nurture sequence to increase show rates, no-show rebooking, qualified application follow-up system, access to our highest ROI ad copies, access to our best performing ad images of all time. Like, we're building all these things out. And then we have like our done for you scholarship bonuses, and there's a lot of different things within this offer stack that we could offer, right? This is just where we just brain dump. What are all the things that we can offer? We got our sales system that we can offer, automated fulfillment system we can offer. There's just so many things we can offer inside of this stack. So that's where it starts. It starts with a brain dump of what we can offer. This is ground zero, right? And then we start surveying the market and just going into different communities and seeing what are people asking questions about consistently, right? And one of the pain points that most people have right now is, for whatever reason, people have a really hard time making money with a high ticket call funnel. And that's something that's our bread and butter. Like, all my most successful brands that we built has been off the back of really well designed and highly functional and scalable call funnels. So we do a brain dump and we're in ground zero, and then we start thinking through, like, what are people going to respond to? So I'll do an initial, just kind of put out a feeler via my network and just see like what angle, what hook are people most likely to reply to. So I'll do an organic post just to see if people reply. And then ground zero for me is I'll do LinkedIn outbound, right? I'll set up a LinkedIn outbound automation with different variations of like the messages and just start setting it out to our ideal, our ICP that we want to get in front of. And as soon as I find something that has a decent response rate on LinkedIn, that becomes the hook variations that I'm going to use for cold traffic and start running ads. Because if somebody who doesn't know who I am, they don't know me from Adam, and I start doing a bunch of cold outbound messages, sending a bunch of cold DMs on LinkedIn, and I get positive replies, that lets me know that the messaging is, and the offering, the hook is compelling enough that someone who is a complete stranger, who I just interrupted their day and spammed their inbox with a cold message, that hook is compelling enough for them to stop what they're doing, reply, and express their interest, because it solves a pain that's greater than them being inconvenienced by some random stranger that they met, that they haven't just met on the internet, right? So that gives us some of the stuff that we need, some of the things that we can go off of to start running ads, start building our advertising strategy, our hook strategy, our sales process, and all those things that we want to utilize to start streamlining and printing money effectively. So if I'm working with a business that's already established, they've already got good organic presence, they've got sales that they're making, then our ground zero is analyzing their content and seeing which one has a disproportionate amount of engagement that turns into engaged leads. And then what are people saying on their sales calls that's getting them to purchase, to make a purchasing decision? What are the patterns there? So that's ground zero. We're doing the research there. And then from there, we're starting to put together the advertising campaigns, the hooks, the headlines, like all the copy that we're going to use in the ads to start to begin phase one. All right, so ground zero is just the R&D. We're gathering data, we're putting together ideas, we're doing some brain dumps, and then if we don't have an audience, I'm putting out feelers, and I'm using LinkedIn as my ground zero, just like R&D, and doing a bunch of cold, sending out a bunch of cold DMs, simply because the tools to do LinkedIn automation for cold messages is like, they're dirt cheap, right? They're dirt cheap. So I can send out like thousands of messages per week and know which angle's working really well within a couple weeks, right? So when we transition to phase one, audience verification, what we're looking for is inside of the advertising campaigns, we want to see cost per impressions within KPI. We want to see link click-through rate within a certain KPI. And then we want to see an opt-in rate on the landing page within certain KPIs. So we're optimizing the advertising creative to get the link click-through rate within KPI. As soon as the link click-through rate is within KPI, we're shifting our attention to the opt-in, to the landing page, and seeing like, what is the opt-in rate on our landing page, right? On our opt-in page, like what is the opt-in rate? And we got to get that within KPI. As soon as we get that within KPI, then we're looking at the lead to book rate. Like, where's the fall off within that process? And the cool thing about Charlie is that it makes this process of figuring out where the fall off is super stinking easy. Like, I'm talking, let me just pull up some results from like this week on an account. All right, so we're in this phase of like, we're audience verification. What we need to do with audience verification is we need to generate enough opportunity to start to take sales calls, right? And we want to take sales calls within KPI. So that's really what we're trying to do here. So inside of Charlie, I can see the amount of leads that were generated in the last 7 days for this funnel. We got a 56% response rate, 51% response to CTA, 19% lead to book, 29% lead to CTA. So when we're in the audience verification phase, we want to get enough of the stuff within KPIs to start talking and getting sales calls, right? So first thing I want to do is I want to get the link CTR within KPI. Then we want to get the opt-in page within KPI. And then we want to start getting calls booked onto the calendar. So the first thing we're optimizing for is we're just trying to get calls on the calendar, right? And then based on the feedback from the sales team or from the founder or whoever's taking sales calls, if it's a new offer that I own, I'm taking sales calls because that's R&D. I need to know the kind of people that we're attracting. Why are they attracted? And if we're getting the wrong kind of people, I need to know what they're seeing that's attracting them so we can do the opposite. So in the first two phases is very critical. We're just gathering a bunch of data. We're gathering information, and that information is informing the decisions that we make overall. So from there, once we've gone through phase zero, ground zero, which is just R&D, phase one, audience verification, I've talked to enough people, and my sample size of conversations that I want to have is at least 20 sales calls. I want to have at least 20 sales calls with prospects just for me to get a good lay of the land to see, like, is this viable? Are we talking and attracting the right kinds of people? Based on those sales calls, we analyze the sales calls of the leads that are the best fit. If we can attract more of these types of leads, that would be ideal. So we'll put those in a bucket. If we can attract less of these kind of leads, that would be ideal. We'll put those in a separate bucket, and we only analyze those two buckets. So we figure out a pattern of the leads that we don't want. What are they seeing? What's attracting them? What about our message bringing them to us? And then we want to shift it and make it very clear that we're repelling these types of leads because we're just not in the best position to serve them. And then our ICP, what did they hear from us that attracted them? Like, what was the hook? What was the angle? What are they saying that really appealed to them? And then what are their language? What are their patterns? How do they communicate? What did they all have in common? So we analyze those, and then we essentially start transitioning. We take this data and we start transitioning into what we call our phase two, which is message optimization. We start optimizing the messaging in our advertisements to attract more of the types of leads that we want. We optimize our messaging in our advertisement to repel the leads that we don't want. And then we optimize our messaging within Charlie to attract and book more of the types of leads that we want. We'll add friction, enough friction to disqualify all the leads that we don't want based on the analysis that we ran, and have enough friction to identify the leads that we do want based on the analysis that we ran. Right. And so now we're optimizing the messaging in this phase two. What's happening in phase two is that what we see is our link click-through rate goes up as Facebook starts to learn who we want to get our ads in front of. So our link click-through rate goes up. Our opt-in page goes up as we start optimizing the messaging in the opt-in page to attract those who want what we have. So not only does our link click-through rate goes up, our opt-in rate goes up, And then our lead to book rate actually goes up because we've optimized the messaging from the ads to the landing page to the conversations and the questions that Charlie's asking these leads. And then we're optimizing all of that messaging with the emails that they're seeing, with the confirmation page, even the naming convention that we use in our sales calls calendar is optimized to attract the ICP that we have. This is the level of detail that you need to have when you are essentially going to run cold traffic and attract the right kind of leads that you want. Right. So now we've optimized the messaging, we've optimized our campaigns, and now we're attracting the right types of people. We transition at this point in phase 2, we're actually making money. We're getting a 3 to 4 to 1 return on ad spend, which is really good. And so from phase 2 to phase 3, conversion optimization, this is when we start looking at everything, right? Then we're looking at, we got the ad campaigns dialed in, we got the messaging in the funnel dialed in, we got the messaging Charlie dialed in. Now we need to optimize the conversion of the leads that we're actually generating, right? So what is our conversion rate on those leads? How do we get more of the high quality leads to actually book a call and show up for those calls? Then we start looking at middle of funnel campaigns to improve and optimize conversions, right? So we're looking at retargeting, we're looking at database reactivations, we're looking at what are high value assets that we can give to our leads, what kind of promos we can do to the leads that we have, and we're really focusing on nurturing the leads that the machine is producing so we can get more of them to actually book a call. And I went over some of this stuff in a previous video when we're going over our 8-figure revenue operations, but this is where the conversion optimization magic starts to happen, is we want to get these things dialed in, and we want to figure out what are the levers that we can pull that are going to predictably produce the outcomes that we want. So once we map those things out, and the way that we know we can graduate from conversion optimization to start scaling is when it's very predictable. We have a predictable cost per lead, we have a predictable cost per application, we have a predictable cost per qualified call, and we have a predictable conversion on those calls that the team is booking. And anytime we are out of KPI on anything, we have levers that we can pull that produce predictable outcomes. So now we're like, okay, cool. We've got the chassis, we've got the engine, we've got everything ready to go. Now we can pour gas in this thing and put high octane gasoline in it and send this thing off into the stratosphere, right? And start scaling, right? And throughout the entire process, from R&D to audience verification, to message optimization, to conversion optimization, to scaling, throughout that entire process, we're running the CADE, more, better, repeat. CADE, compile data, analyze data, data-driven strategy, execute. When we execute, we're doing more, we're doing better, we're repeating, we're doing more, we're doing better, we're repeating, we're doing more, we're doing better, we're repeating, we're doing more, we're doing better, so on and so forth, until those things are maxed out. Once we max those things out, now it's all right, cool. How big do we want this thing to be? Let's do some forecasting, right? And now the machine is in place for us to start driving it and growing as fast or as slow as we want. And then the other thing that we need to dial in is going to be the human capital, the human machine. How many people do we need to actually get to the different revenue levels that we're going to need? How many people on the back end? What are the infrastructures in the back end? How do we do delivery? How do we manage them? What are the actual human systems that need to get put in place to ensure that this thing is going to produce the results and outcomes that we need it to produce? So that's really it at a high level, right? And we do the same thing with Charlie, right? We're looking at audience verification, message optimization, conversion optimization, and we're teaching all of our users how to do this same thing so that as they're growing, they're able to take this same mental model and apply it to the business to remove any constraint that are caused downstream as a result of all the stuff top of funnel getting dialed in. So anytime we start to dial in our top of funnel stuff, there's downstream effects that we have to consider if we want to ramp things up. For a great example, one of our offers right now in order for us to kind of get to where we want to be revenue wise, they're going to need to hire about 2 to 3 coaches per month to sustain the growth that we're seeing from the front end, right? And then there's a few other back end systems that needs to be in place in order to level up. And there's some other systems within the sales process that needs to be dialed in to handle the larger scale of just people that are getting introduced into the machine. So those are the things, downstream things that you have to sit down and consider. You got to compile the data. You got to compile data, then you got to analyze it. Then you have to develop strategy around the data that you're seeing, and then you have to execute. When you execute, you're just trying to get as many reps as possible, right? Your form and doing everything perfectly and all that stuff, it doesn't really matter from a business perspective when you're just when you don't know what's what, right? So when we're doing more, the framework of more is just get underneath the damn bar and start cranking out reps, right? And as you start cranking out reps, your body starts to tell you, oh, I don't like when you do it like that. And you're like, oh, okay, I need to put my chest up. I need to tuck my elbows in and start cranking like that. Okay, it feels a lot better when I do it like that. The weight moves a lot easier when I do it like that. A lot of people don't take time to just pay attention to what's happening. Like as you're doing things, you have to be compiling data, and you got to be analyzing it and starting to figure out, like, okay, if I do it like this, the weight's kind of weird. Like, that's all a part of getting reps. The purpose of doing as much as you can and maxing out volume is because in the act of doing, to the one that is curious and observant, the act of doing is the best ground for them to learn and develop mastery, right? If you're just doing mindlessly and you're just not paying attention, doing more, like, you're going to be in the same place forever. But if you're curious and observant, and as you're doing, you're paying attention to like what's happening around you or what's happening to your body as you're doing the thing, what starts to happen is you start to find nuances in the execution. Like, oh, okay, if I do it like this, I can actually move more weight, right? If I do this, I can actually see a disproportional increase in my output, right? And then that's how you start figuring out what you need to do better. And then as you figure out what you need to do better, the standard goes up, right? And now you need to do more at this new level of better. And as you're doing more at this new level of better, again, to the one who's curious and observant, the act of doing is going to be the best place to develop mastery. So now as I'm doing more at this stage of doing better, I have a new level of awareness of what is happening around me, because I'm not using so much processing power just to do the basic thing. Now I could unlock more nuances. I'm paying attention to more things. And the reason why this is so applicable, because like if you read the Bible, I have read the entire thing several times over, like probably over 30 times. And I'm reading things and I'm like, am I reading this for the first time? Like, why have I never noticed this? Like, how have I never noticed this? And my mind is getting blown, right? But that's what happens in business when you're doing something, or in any sports when you're doing something and you're practicing long enough, you get to a point where there was only so much you can mentally comprehend when you were an amateur, right? But as your subconscious is kicking in and doing all the heavy lifting of sustaining the new level of better that you've developed, now your conscious brain has the bandwidth to start looking and processing all this other information that you weren't aware of, that you didn't have the mental capacity to even be aware of the new information and the additional nuance. Hopefully I'm doing my best to hopefully that's just clear enough and you're picking up what I'm putting down, right? So as we're going through more, better, repeat, and you got to go through that loop. That is the mastery loop. we're doing more, we're getting better, we're doing more at the new stage of better, we're repeating and doing more, and so on and so forth. That is a mastery loop. Once you've dialed that in, what we found is from one channel, we can build an 8-figure brand from one channel, just from going through that loop and never exploring new. That's why I've not ran ads on any other platform other than Meta since 2018. And we're working on our 8-figure brand that we're building. And I'm not run any other ads on any other platform other than Meta. Maybe we do some keywords, Google ads for like 20 to 30 bucks a day, but I've never spent more than 20, 30 bucks a day on another advertising platform other than Meta. Because we go through that phase and we're able to do 8 figures consistently. That's our 8-figure optimization framework. When I get to 9 figures, then I'll probably might need to update it and we have a new 9-figure optimization framework. But my thesis is that if we are able to maintain the thing that we're doing now and continue to iterate, we might be able to get to that in a better vehicle. I think I've been able to crack the 9-figure because the vehicle that I've been in historically has always been kind of capped at 8 figures. So we'll see. I think the vehicle that we're in now is much better and much more conducive for getting to 9 figures, but only time will tell. All right, so hopefully you find that helpful. If you did, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. So next time, stay calm, change lives, not business on your terms. Peace.